What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Podcast Network. We are here with you today on Monday with episode 325, jumping back into the power rankings, back into the Atlantic Division check-in for each team throughout the last week that they had, and maybe a little Dallas Mavericks talk, just a little bit again, based on some new reports and the things we've seen from them. So without further ado, let's jump into the intro.
Welcome to the Atlantic Files, where humor and vibes collide. Nets and Sixers, the king of the court, jokes that hit you one more. Atlantic Division, we own the scene. Comedy, food talk, every routine. Mike Bash, Alex Fischbein on the mic, making you laugh every episode right. Game is strong, court to kitchen, we're never wrong. You know what time it is, it's time for the Atlantic Files.
What's going on, everybody? As always, your host, myself, Alex Fischbein, back again with you here on the first day of week 4 of the NBA. And we are going to jump right into things here. We got a nice little quick episode for everybody because, back to just me for this one. And this one it came out on YouTube a little bit later than expected. Being a dad can be hard sometimes. So I don't think you guys want to listen to me when I am very, very sleep deprived. So I thought ahead for that one. So without further ado, the Atlantic Division standings heading in to week 4. I did write down some standings from last night, but there was a couple games that also happened last night. So the Knicks are in first at 6-3. They are the 3rd seed overall in the East. The Sixers are at second at 6-4, the 7th seed overall. The Raptors are 5-5. They're the 8th seed overall. The Celtics are 5-6. They are the 10th seed overall. And the Nets are 1-9. They are they're not 15th. They are actually the 13th seed overall. They are tied with the Indiana Pacers and the Washington Wizards, but the tiebreaker goes to the Nets as of right now. So I want to jump into the Knicks because they are first in these standings right now. And the last time we did our weekly check-in, they dropped to, I think it was 3rd at the time, if I remember correctly. If I turn the page back, they were 3rd the last time we did this. So last Monday, the Sixers were in first at 4-1, the Celtics were in second at 3-4, and then the Knicks were in third at 2-3. So since then, the Knicks have gone on a nice little 4-game win streak, and their offense has been rolling. In those 4 games, they scored 128 against the Bulls, 119 against the Wizards, 137 against the Timberwolves, and then 134 against the Nets. Now, 2 of those teams, obviously 2 of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference, but the Bulls and the Timberwolves, both solid wins. The Bulls one was a home and home, so they lost the first one to the Bulls, but then got that second one after that when they were in Madison Square Garden. And to top things off, the Knicks have not lost a game at MSG. So the home crowd doing big things for them. And I want to bring up something here. So I wrote this down because I thought that this was a pretty crazy stat. But no player in NBA history has ever averaged more than 10 rebounds per game and shot above 90% from the free throw line. Because most of the times, the people getting those rebounds are usually big men. There's a couple times it's been done by guards such as Russell Westbrook and probably Oscar Robertson because they average those triple doubles, but they did not shoot above 90% from the free throw line. And right now, Karl-Anthony Towns is averaging 12.7 rebounds per game and shooting 92% from the free throw line. He's not shooting that well jump shot wise overall, but at least he's hitting it from the free throw line. The last time we actually looked, his shooting percentages were pretty bad, but right now shooting 43.5% from the floor on 14.5 attempts a game, and then 32.6% from three on 4.8 attempts per game. So if we look at some of the other part of the Knicks cast, the biggest name I want to bring up is actually OG Anunoby, currently career highs in points per game at 18.2, rebounds per game at 6.2, steals per game at 2.2, made threes per game at 3.1, and 3-point percentage at 43.8%. So OG Anunoby really enjoying the new system, the new chemistry and everything with the team, and has been doing really big things in 2 fewer minutes played than he was averaging last season as well. Brunson, still very good, 27 points a game, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal. Mikal Bridges doing really well. He's actually leading the team in field goal percentage and shooting 50% from 3 right now on 5.3 attempts. So big bounce back for Bridges he had some rough stretches there last season, but this season looking great so far. Also for the Knicks, they're first in offensive rating in November at 131.1, and they're first in net rating at 22.3. And if we're going to look ahead here for their schedule this week, on Tuesday, they're home for the entire week. There's a 6-game homestand before they go on a 5-game road trip. But they play Memphis on Tuesday, then Orlando on the second half of that back-to-back, and then they play Miami on Friday. So 3 definitely winnable games. Memphis has looked very iffy, especially with the whole Ja Morant situation going on. Orlando has not looked good really at all to start the season. And then Miami is very vulnerable with all of the different parts of that roster moving from last season to this season and still trying to build some confidence of those rookies. So the Knicks could very well go on a 7-game win streak into this road trip, who then, even in the road trip, it's not that tough of a road trip right after that, because then they go to Miami in that next week, then Dallas, Orlando, Brooklyn, Charlotte. So out of those teams, the only one of them with a winning record is the Heat. The rest of those teams don't even have a winning record. So it's definitely, they could come out of that with a huge win streak as long as everyone keeps playing the way they are. So we could see the Knicks really rolling here to start the season. Then we go on over to Philadelphia, who kind of went the opposite way this week. So I brought up that they were 4-1 the last time we did the Monday check-in. Now they're 6-3. They had some rough stretches for sure. And the big thing is, there's the whole debate of, should they trade Embiid? Should they trade Paul George? Because like they were winning without them and blah, blah, blah. Guys, we all got to pump the brakes. Look, in the first, 6 games, the Sixers went 5-1, right? They played Boston, losing record. Charlotte, losing record. Orlando, losing record. Washington, losing record. Boston again, which was a loss, but losing record. Brooklyn, losing record. Like, don't get me wrong, I have enjoyed the Sixers' start to the season, but you still have to pump the brakes a little bit, because some of these games were really close too, and a few of these teams are literally in last place in the East to start the year. Then they go to Chicago, lose a heartbreaker. However, they were up by 24 points going into the second half, and then end up losing it on a last-second 3 to Vucevic. And then they go to Cleveland in that back-to-back and lose the second game of that by 11 points. Then they come back home. They beat Toronto in a very good game, 130-120 there, with Trendon Watford getting his first triple-double of his career. And then the second half of that back-to-back, they play Detroit and lose by 3. which again, they were leading a lot in that game. And in the second half just fell apart because you're in the second half of a back-to-back. Maxi's playing like 40 minutes a game. People have dead legs. And your role players are playing well, but just not well enough when you're playing somebody like Cade Cunningham, who just went absolutely nuts in that second half, and Jalen Duren, who's just absolutely dominating the paint and everything with Joel Embiid not playing. So, and so far, I think it was the Sixers have 16 back-to-backs. Now, that's pretty crazy if you ask me. It's tied for the most in the league. But in this 1 week alone, they had 2 separate back-to-backs, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Saturday, Sunday, and all of them against solid teams. Detroit's leading the East. Chicago was leading the East at the time. Cleveland is near the top of the East, and Toronto is only 1 game back of the Sixers right now. So, like, after what was pretty much a cakewalk in the beginning 6 games, turned into quite a difficult schedule right after that. Now, this week they're home against Boston, then going to Detroit. So they only got 2 games this week because of that whole back-to-back situation. But then they start to play teams like the Clippers, then the Raptors again, then Milwaukee. Miami, I talked about them before. They're vulnerable and everything, but they still have some very good moments, and they're a very well-coached team. Then you play Orlando and Brooklyn again, but then there's Atlanta, who knows what type of a team you're going to get with Atlanta. Then you get to Golden State, Milwaukee again, the Lakers, the Knicks. Like, you start to hit these tougher patches of the schedule, and now with the inexperience of some of these guys out there like VJ Edgecombe, this kind of stuff starts to shine through, especially in these end-of-game situations. I have yet to see an end-of-game situation where it was a close game where I was like, that was a well-drawn-up play, well-executed, and they won the game. A lot of the times, even when they do make the shot at the end, it doesn't look that well written up. And a lot of the times, people are way too frantic. The end of the game against Detroit was just a ton of dribble, dribble, dribble. Okay, set a screen, handoff. Dribble, 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 set a screen, handoff. Dribble, dribble, dribble. Let's get it to Maxey. Maxey's double covered. Maxey's just going to chuck up a shot. Like, what? Like, you got to be working on something. So at that point, you got to trust the work outside the game. And especially with a younger team, and, your 2 main guys in terms of contracts being Embiid and Paul George not being out there, somebody has to take those reins and like set things up and have things go the way they're supposed to go. And Maxey has improved leaps and bounds as a leader, but there's still a ways to go there. And that's okay because Maxey is still pretty young himself. But that kind of stuff is shining through right now. So hopefully it gets better by the end of the season that comes around. But there's still a bit of unknown in that regard. Now, things I liked, though, in this stretch, Trendon Watford, I said before, he got his first career triple-double. He's now being tasked as like a secondary playmaker after Maxey. That was one of the big rumors in the offseason, that when they signed him, that like he was going to be able to play that role. And there's been people saying like this is like Ben Simmons if he was just a normal basketball player, because like he doesn't have that special aspect of Ben Simmons, but also he doesn't have now the whole mental regression aspect that Ben Simmons went through either. So, I mean, I really loved the minutes that I saw Watford play throughout the week. There was a lot of good things from him, both defensively, offensively, on the boards. Not the most athletic guy out there, but knows how to time things well, especially on the glass. Knows how to really connect the team passing wise, which is something the Sixers have needed for a long time. Somebody like a Nick Batum that knows when to make that extra pass, when to pull the catch and shoot, when to do the correct dribble handoff with the correct guy, or maybe even an entry pass to the post. Basic things. I'm aware, basic things, but those are things that the Sixers have lacked for a long time. So seeing it is a breath of fresh air, and I enjoy it. One thing I think that I'm really focusing on, especially in the next couple of weeks, is Jared McCain and how his minutes start to develop, because on the second half of the back-to-back with Toronto, Detroit, he was technically available against Toronto, but just never got he got a DNP coach's decision. So then they saved him for Detroit. And if that's the case, I'm like, it makes sense. You save him for the second half of the back-to-back because you're already playing Maxey crazy amount of minutes. You're playing Edgecombe a crazy amount of minutes, Oubre a crazy amount of minutes. Even Grimes is getting a ton of minutes coming off the bench. So relieving them after, when it's like double the exhaustion, that part makes sense to me. However, there doesn't seem to be that much of a plan. It's kind of like, let's wait and see how this goes. And when we put him on the court, I don't know, but we're just going to keep him in the corner. There was a lot of offensive possessions that they stuffed him in the corner, and you didn't really see much from him. Like, you weren't drawing anything up for him to get the ball in his hands and initiate any offense, even though he showed some of his best moments in his rookie season when he was initiating the offense. So you would think like, hey, he's still getting up to speed. Let's give him one or two plays here and there. Let's try to get him, get him into a rhythm. He still hasn't hit a bucket yet in the 2 games that he's played. He's gotten some assists. He's gotten a couple steals. Some things have looked good. He looked a little faster on the court than he did his first game back, which makes sense. Still trying to trust the knee again. I get it. But it just doesn't seem like there's a full plan in terms of getting him up to speed. And it's like, you would want to start doing that sooner rather than later, because you're just going to have to kind of start this whole thing over again when Paul George is back and then Dominic Barlow's back, and then the constant in and out of Embiid coming into the lineup and his minutes restriction and things like that. I'm sure Paul George is going to be on a minutes restriction. So they say McCain is on a minutes restriction as well. So at that point, like, get him his time either early on in the game or something so that he can find a rhythm again, because basketball is all about streaks. It's about rhythms. It's about getting into your mind space and your zone. And if you're not getting those stretches of time, you're not able to get into that zone. So I'm just curious how that's really going to happen. Then I do want to shout out Andre Drummond. He is looking like the best he's played really as a Sixer, even like his first stint where he really gave some very good minutes in that first stint with the Sixers. But I mean, he has played some very good defense. His rebounding has been extremely valuable, especially on the defensive boards, to limit some of the other teams that are pretty good offensive rebounders. So I love the minutes I'm seeing out of Andre Drummond so far, and he rightfully so got the start against Detroit because Adem Bona, outside of some good defensive plays here and there, I mean, he hasn't really shown all that much, especially over the last week. And then BJ Edgecombe, he just had some rough shooting nights strung together here. He's actually looking like a rookie now. So you're just going to have to wait for him to come back along. He just needs to build up the confidence, get his shot again, and he'll be fine. But obviously, everything doesn't look as explosive as it was when he's hitting shots and he's super confident. And everyone's like, oh, my God, he's rookie of the year and MVP. So he's got some, he's got some time. And then we move on to the Raptors. They beat Milwaukee 128-100. They beat Atlanta 109-97. And then they lost to the Sixers 120-130. They have, let's see, their schedule coming up this week is they have a kind of a bit of a mixed bag. So they're at Brooklyn, then at Cleveland on Thursday, and then at Indiana on Saturday. So a couple easier games and a harder game there with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the thing I want to point out, so I have 2 things that I'm looking at here. I was reading an article. Let's see. Do I have it up to shout out the author? I don't. I'm sorry. I will find that out and I will post it in the description. But he was talking, it was in Raptors Republic, I think is the website, but they were talking about the half-court offense, how the efficiency of the half-court offense has finally returned to a level that it hasn't seen since 2018-19. And obviously, a big part of that is Brandon Ingram. He's given them an ISO scorer, someone to generate some looks when like fast breaks and getting out on the run kind of slows down, and then it turns into the slower half court offense. Brandon Ingram has actually given them somebody that can kind of dominate in that area, and he's played very well. Brandon Ingram didn't have like the game that he usually has against the Sixers, and he visibly got frustrated when he spiked his water bottle and it sprayed over everybody and hit the towel guy and everything. But he has unlocked a part of the offense that the Raptors have been missing for a long time. Because to be honest, Scotty Barnes is not that ISO one-on-one break you down type of player. He can do it here and there, but he's not the guy to consistently get you buckets in that area. They wanted Emmanuel Quickly to kind of be that guy, and he can do it here and there, but he's not a guy to do that very efficiently and consistently. And then you got RJ Barrett, not the pinnacle of efficient or consistent either. And so enter Brandon Ingram. You got somebody to do that for you. He has RJ Barrett has shot very efficiently off of like kick out passes from Ingram in that ISO ball. And then you still have somebody like Scotty Barnes that can be the connectivity guy, the one to get the boards and get some second chance points and do kind of the Swiss Army type of thing that he is very good at in the first place. So Ingram unlocks a lot. And then the other, Sandro Mamukashvili. I probably messed that up. I still can't. For some reason, I look at the pronunciation and it doesn't register in my brain. But Mamu, he's been outstanding. Role player wise, especially, like he has been outstanding for this team. And I love what he gives them off the bench. I'm just pulling up his stats here real quick. So in the 10 games, he's played around almost 18 minutes a game, shooting 58.2% from the floor, 43.5% from three on 2.3 attempts, and then 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists per game. And yeah, he's just looked very solid. And I just like what he provides off the bench for them. And if you can get some more role players that are able to consistently provide like he does, that's what gives you the winning formula. And then we move on to the Boston Celtics. They lost to Utah 103-105. They beat Washington 136-107. Then they lost to Orlando 110-123. And then they beat Orlando in that home-to-home type of series there, 111-107. Now, obviously, this team's we've talked about this before on the Atlantic Files, that the team's going to be very inconsistent with the way that the roster is kind of in limbo. And other than Jaylen Brown, you just don't know who really is going to be the second guy night in and night out. You want it to be Anthony Simons. And for the most part, I mean, he's putting up 15 points a game, 43.7% from the floor. He's not much of an assist guy. He only has 1.7 a game right now. And when you look at the Celtics, let's see. The two leading passers are pretty much who you would expect. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. They're both at 5.1 a game. Then it drops down to Jaylen Brown at 3.9. And then nobody averages 2 or more assists a game. You have Simons at 1.7. Kata's at 1.5. Ron Harper Jr. He's only played 2 games, but he's at 1.5. Hauser 1.5. Minot 1.4. Garza 1. And then everyone else is below 1. So they're averaging around 23.3 assists per game, which isn't the worst. In fact, it's the third worst. They're ranked 28th in assists, but they are ranked first in turnovers. They turn over the ball the least amount of any team at only 11.5 per game. And I guess it's because they're just not passing the ball as much. I'd have to kind of watch with a fine-tooth comb a little bit more to produce that answer. But the team, I don't know. It's lacking some movement. It's lacking a pure distributor type of some sort, or like I've talked about the connectivity guy a couple times now, lacking one of those. And the defense is going to carry this team as far as it can. Right now, they're actually the second best in opponent points per game in the league at 110.4, and they are 11th in net rating at plus 2.5. And part of that has to deal with their pace. They're actually 29th in pace at 96.7. So they're the second slowest team in the league right now. And for those who don't, who might not know how pace is really calculated, that is team possessions plus their opponent possessions divided by two. I actually never seen this legit formula, but 2 times the team minutes played. And so it's essentially just an estimate of the number of possessions per 48 minutes by a team, is essentially what it boils down to. And if you want to look at, let's see, if you want to look at the leaders of pace right now, if we can get there, if I can find it, which I might not be able to. All right. I can't find it at this moment, but like I said, second to last in pace. So the Celtics, to me, they still present as an interesting team just because of the names they have on there and kind of finding their diamond in the rough guys from the bench. I just can't take them too seriously as a contending team because of how many people they lost in the offseason. And then, of course, Jason Tatum not being there either. There's just a lot of question marks. So I'm just waiting to see kind of how the season plays out a little bit longer. They, this week, they're going to Philly on Tuesday. Then the second half of a back-to-back, they're home against Memphis on Wednesday, and then home against the Clippers on Sunday. So some tougher games there, and should be interesting to see how they do until they then go and face Brooklyn twice in a row, which should be 2 more wins there. And then, speaking of Brooklyn, we get down to the Nets. Honestly, there's not too much to say about the Nets. I do want to shout out CJ Holmes of the New York Daily News because I was reading this article, which is titled, "If the Nets are this bad, let the rookies learn," which is something that I have said from the start of the process to every tanking team when I'm talking football, basketball, whatever. If your goal is tanking and you are not looking to contend at all, you can lie about it till the cows come home saying like, well, we might be able to contend, whatever team it is. Just be honest with yourself. If you are not contending like the Brooklyn Nets, who are 1-9 at the moment, your main focus should be getting the young guys minutes, getting them experience, and making sure that when you're ready and you start to make the moves to compete, that the guys you have drafted, the guys you have signed, are vetted enough to know, okay, these are the ones staying with us and helping us win, while the other ones can go somewhere else. Otherwise, you're just treading water, doing absolutely nothing. We know what Michael Porter Jr. gives you. We know what Cam Thomas gives you. They both give you points with not much passing and not much defense. So you don't, like, the jury is out on them. Like, or maybe I shouldn't say the jury is out, but they are decided as players. I don't see either one of these guys changing their style, their mindset, anything. So why aren't they drafted 5 people in the past draft? They drafted Yamin, Drake Powell, Ben Saraf, Nolan Traore, and Danny Wolf. 3 of them are in the G League. They're not even with the team. They're not even playing, which makes no sense. Why wouldn't you get those guys playing time if you're 1-9 and you really look 1-9? Like, let's be real here. The Brooklyn Nets look bad. They're 26th in terms of points per game, 29th in opponents' points per game. They're 23rd in pace. They're playing super slow. Usually the teams that play really fast, their defense isn't as good because there's so many more opportunities for points with teams that play faster, a la the Indiana Pacers last season when they were giving up, past 2 seasons, when they're giving up tons of points, but it was also because they were playing ridiculously fast pace. They are not playing that fast. They're getting 99 possessions in 48 minutes. And their defensive rating is dead last at 126.8. Their offensive rating is 25th, and their net rating is 29th at negative 15.7. You guys are terrible. Get them as much playing time as possible. Just start them. Start all 5. I don't even care. Start, there's no reason, if I'm looking at this. First off, Nick Claxton, 26. You can definitely find somewhere to trade Nick Claxton. I'm sorry, you can. And you can get some decent value for Nick Claxton. He can be a helpful center on any other team in the league other than the Brooklyn Nets right now. Terrence Mann, I still don't know why okay, you brought in a veteran. Cool. He's starting all 10 games. He's getting 26 minutes. He's getting more minutes than every single rookie they drafted this past draft. Okay, Michael Porter Jr. is getting 31.6 minutes a game, the most of any player. And yes, he is your best player. But what does that get you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Their highest assist man is Nick Claxton at 3.7 assists per game. Not even Terrence Mann is second at 3.4. So your veterans aren't even passing the ball. I just don't understand the thought process. I don't understand the strategy and the path ahead. It's a lottery too, so you're not even guaranteed to get DeBansta. So you're gonna have to figure this out. That's all I'm saying. I don't even have anything else to say about the Nets. You got to figure it out. And so moving on here to our final topic, Nico Harrison. It looks like there's been some rumblings that, Nico Harrison, the reports are it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Nico Harrison gets fired. And to be honest with you, that should be obvious. Like, everyone's just expecting him to be fired at any moment now. And I found this post on Reddit, which was really breaks everything down pretty nice. So the headline of the post is the top 5 ways Nico Harrison ruined the Mavericks. Number 1, obviously we all know it, trading away Luka Doncic. The guy who was supposed to be the face of your franchise for years to come, got you to the finals, was co-signed by your previous generational talent in Dirk Nowitzki. Everything was lining up for Luka to be the guy, your guy, go down as one of the all-time greats, and you trade him for an injury-prone 32-year-old Anthony Davis who doesn't fit with the Mavs. He's already hurt and missed like 4 or 5 games, and he's a guy that probably should play center but wants to play power forward. Then you got Max Christie, who yeah, cool, nice little bench piece there. And you only got one other first-round pick. This could arguably go down as the worst trade in NBA history. That's already, that alone should get you fired, if you ask me. But let's move on. Number 2, failing to extend Jalen Brunson at a reported $14 million a year. And then failing to beat the Knicks' 4-year offer with a 5-year deal after he helped the Mavs get to the Western Conference Finals. And now Brunson is a perennial all-star, top 10 player. So now you have let go of 2 of the best players of the team, one being the face of your franchise. One has turned into actually the face of another franchise. Now 3, trading Quentin Grimes, who is currently averaging over 18 points a game for Philadelphia and over 20 since his trade of last year, for an injured Caleb Martin, who has been far from the Miami Heat Caleb Martin. And he's barely even played. And they talked about defense wins championships. Well, I mean, you're not even playing him. So there's that. Then firing Casey Smith, widely considered the best trainer in the NBA and the trainer for Team USA, reportedly for being, quote, too negative. This says Nico fired him as Smith was on leave while his mother was dying. First off, huge red flag in and of itself. He was hired by the Knicks, who were bottom 6 in injuries last year, and was replaced by a new trainer fired within a year. And athletic performance director Keith Belton, who is not certified to be an NBA strength coach, was also fired, as the Mavs were one of the most injured teams last year. Stupid move. Number 4. Now we move to number 5, trading away all first-round picks or pick swaps and multiple seconds between 2027 and 2030 to build a complementary team around Luka's defensive shortcomings for role players like PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, and then trading Luka away before 2027 for a guy for whom these players are more redundant than complementary, because now you got a lot of defensive guys who can't shoot, and one of your biggest issues right now, nobody can shoot the ball. So how does that really help you? And some of these, they have some honorable mentions / speculative / debatable, trading injury prone, Porzingis, and a second round pick for 2 bench guys who are now out of the league. And Porzingis did well in Washington, then went to Boston, won the championship, and so on and so forth. Convincing the new owners to push Cuban out of de facto operations management. Cuban and the Adelsons had a handshake deal to let him essentially run the team, so he had total independence to make the dumbest trade in NBA history. Trash talked Luka's work ethic in public to deflect criticism, immediately contradicted by former player testimonies. And if the trade itself didn't lose the whole locker room, then the open disrespect did. These are direct quotes from this post, by the way. Pushed Dirk away from his position as honorary team representative. Dirk has attended more games for other teams than Mavs games since the trade, and he lives in Dallas. Nico publicly mentioned his job is not to make Dirk happy, which felt disrespectful. That's your franchise's best player of all time. So the guy who brought you one of the craziest championships of all time as well. And then let Derrick Jones Jr. walk in free agency after being a primary contributor to the Mavs finals run, who is actually doing quite well for the Los Angeles Clippers and is a very key piece role player for them as well. So not only do you make one of the worst trades in NBA history with the Luka Doncic trade, but you do all of these other things, and somehow you are still given the ability to be the GM. Usually sports positions like GM are some of the worst job security, but somehow, some way, Nico Harrison must have some dirt on somebody, because he's still there after all of that. If half of that happened in Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure Philly sports fans would have rioted at the stadium. Absolutely rioted. So we're not surprised that he's on the way out. He should be on the way out. But that's it for us here on Monday at the Atlantic Files for episode number 325. We are the number 1 podcast on the number 1 division in the NBA. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening wherever you get your podcast. We usually drop the episode early on YouTube, and then it gets released to everything else later on. But we are on Mondays and Wednesdays, so we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you again for listening. Peace.